This topic, I was interested in this topic because AI has been in the news a lot. It's been talked about a lot. Um, and I was excited to learn more. So this was developing, this talk was kind of me jumping into the topic and learning as much as I could so I could share it. So let's kick it off. So first off, I don't know about you, but I've seen these kinds of statements happening a lot over the last couple of months. Things that are a little bit hyperbolic and talking about like, hey, are we, as developers, are we going to get replaced by AIs? That's where a lot of this sentiment is coming from, mostly coming from a product called ChatGPT. Who here has used ChatGPT before? Yeah, so a lot of us here have used it. And there's been, AI investments and AI products over the last 5 to 10 years, but ChatGPT kind of came out of OpenAI and it came out with a product that really blew everyone away. And as we all got a chance to try this product, we started to have these kinds of sentiments that, man, this is really good. The demos that ChatGPT has for writing code and for improving code and like building like working applications or working scripts at least, those demos were really good. So there's a lot of this sentiment. Yeah. So I think people are like seeing ChatGPT and they're seeing the possibility of things like this, even though the current iteration still has some rough edges. I mean, honestly, for me, I kind of ignored it when ChatGPT came out, and I heard people talking about it, and I thought, it's all hype. We've been here before. I've lived through the early crypto days. Like, I was waiting for it to generate more interest, but like I kept seeing these kinds of things, and the more I'd see it, the more kind of nervous and apprehensive I'd get about it. Yeah, like honestly, it was like kind of starting to get worried just because you see these things and you don't really know like how good is it, right? I kind of came away with this thought that like being afraid is no way to live, and the best way to deal with the apprehensiveness is to just dive in and like shine a light into it and see actually how good this stuff really is, and see how good it can make me. So my plan to do that was to read as much as I could about it, and then also just try and build stuff, see what I could build using these tools, and see if I can figure out, like, do these claims hold up or not. So I put together like a reading list. I read much more than this, but these were some of my favorite reads both about like AI, but more specifically about its potential to assist us as developers writing code. And I put a link into the Discord that has my slides, so if you want to come through this and add some of these to your reading list, you can do that. If you have things that you've read that you thought was a really good summary of the state of AI for programming, I'd say please throw that into Discord as well, because I'd like to read more. Some of my favorites was this one from Bill Gates, The Age of AI Has Begun. Thought it was really good. It was comprehensive. He talks about how it could impact a whole host of different industries, not just like software, but also things like healthcare, education, things like that, which is pretty cool. Also, my other favorite one was this one near the bottom, AI Enhanced Development Makes Me More Ambitious with My Projects, from Simon Willison. Man, this was exactly what I wanted to read. I wanted to have something to be excited about with these tools coming out, and that one really made me excited. There was this quote here from it that I really liked. It said, "In the past, I've had plenty of ideas for projects which I've ruled out because they would take a day or days of work to get to a point where they're useful. I have enough other stuff to build already, but if ChatGPT can drop that down to an hour or less, those projects can suddenly become viable." And like I relate with this because I've got like lists of project ideas, and most of them are stupid and not worth the time to actually build them. But like if that time gets reduced, then maybe it is kind of worth it to build some of these stupid things. So that gave me a little bit more confidence and a little bit more enthusiasm for jumping in. So we mentioned ChatGPT. A lot of you have used ChatGPT, but there's a whole bunch of other tools that are specifically for programming assistance. Who has heard of or used GitHub Copilot? Anyone like actively using it for work or anything? Not really. Okay, so GitHub Copilot's another one of the really big ones. I would describe it as like an autocomplete plugin for your code editor, almost like you might have for like Gmail. If you use Gmail and they have like the smart autocompletes where they kind of end your sentences and stuff for you, that kind of thing. There's this one, I don't know how to pronounce this, I've been calling it Fin, but they call it an AI-enhanced search engines for developers. And you can think of it as Google. You put in whatever you would put into Google, searching for like an error message or some like answer to something, you can put it in here. And what it does is it will kind of summarize a lot of the search results and tell it to you in more of a narrative, and then give you the sources where it's finding some of that information. So it can save you a click and can kind of bring data together to give you an answer more quickly. That's the idea, at least. Pretty interesting. Then this other one that I have been looking into a lot is Cursor, which is a code editor with AI assistance built into it. And you can kind of think of it like a Copilot, but it is more integrated. So where Copilot is kind of autocomplete, it will finish your text for you. Cursor has a lot of AI built in a lot of interesting ways. It has like a sidebar that's kind of like ChatGPT that you can just ask questions to, and it will answer those questions using context from your open windows that you have. So I'll get more into that later, but it's supposed to be way more integrated than GitHub Copilot is. The entire editor is built around AI, and I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. There's also Google Bard, which is Google's ChatGPT. There's Bing Chat, which is Microsoft's version of ChatGPT, and then there's a bunch of other tools and technologies that are coming out every day. I think one thing I want to mention about this is that a lot of these things are free right now, at least or they have free demos or free trials. And I think that if you want to get into trying out AI-assisted development, now is a really good time, because all of these products are trying to gain market share as fast as they can. So they're making their things free and they're eating all the costs themselves. So now's the time to try it out before all these things end up behind like paywalls and stuff. I will say for ChatGPT, you can get on a wait list and get access for free. They have a more advanced version that you pay a subscription for. I think it uses GPT-4, and it's supposed to give you higher quality results. I've been using the older version, and it's still pretty good. Still enough to assist me with what I'm trying to do code-wise. So that's a fine place to start. There's a similar business model with Copilot. You can pay a subscription for access, but they give you a free trial. I was really lucky. I've done a little bit of open source maintenance in the past, and when I requested access to GitHub Copilot, they said, hey, you're an open source developer. We're going to give you extended access. So instead of like 90 days, I gave like 12 months or something. It's pretty cool. So if you do open source, that's a nice little benefit. And then these other ones were just free to use. I think there might be some token limitations, like a cap on how many requests you can send in with some of these, Cursor specifically, but I haven't hit that limit yet, so not quite sure. Anyways, lots of really cool tools. These were the ones that I decided to use to experiment with and to try and build some of those crappy side project ideas that I had kind of thrown in the dustbin before. You want to be careful what you're putting into all of these tools. If it's something that is very proprietary or private, then it might be best to turn it off. What I did when I was using these was I downloaded these extensions for my code editors, and then I disabled them locally, and then I would only enable them on certain projects that I wanted them to be on. And I think that that's smart. My company, Formidable, actually has policy where you're not supposed to be using these tools for client work because we don't want our clients' proprietary information being fed into the algorithm. So you got to be careful, and I think side projects are a good place to start, and then hopefully we'll see more of those like privacy-focused features getting added in the future. Might have to pay for them. Cool. So let's talk about just a couple of the projects I decided to build. So there were two main ones that I wanted to work on. One of them was an Alfred plugin. Alfred is a sort of a workflow optimizer tool for Mac that I like to use, and it lets you to like run commands, and then it'll like fire off scripts for you. So I made a project that will purge my Cloudflare cache for me whenever I want to, and it's just a little script for doing that using Alfred. And then the other one is a Chrome extension that you can use to add googly eyes to people's faces on the internet, just because I thought it would be kind of fun. So I made that as well. And those are, we're probably just going to start looking at some of these and how I use those tools to use them. And I also want to just like jump into live demos using all these because I think it's more fun to do that. And all right, so we're going to start with this Alfred workflow and ChatGPT. So the way Alfred works is you do a command, and then it brings up like a toolbar here, and then you can search for anything on your laptop. You can search Google. It's like a universal search bar for Mac. And the extension that I put in allows me to put in CF, and then it will purge my Cloudflare cache. And I run it, and then I'll get a notification. I disable my notifications for the top, but you get a notification that says your cache is cleared. So that's how it works. And then the way you develop it is they have like a little UI. You define the keyword here, and then you put in the script, and then you tell it to do a Mac notification. And then that's pretty much it. So what I did was, what I needed was this middle part. I needed the script that I wanted to run when I put in the cache keyword. So I went to Alfred, I went to ChatGPT, and maybe I'll see if I can increase the size of this. There we go. Yeah. ChatGPT is pretty cool. They preserve all your chat history here, so you can look through your past chats, which is kind of nice. So I said, can you show me some example code for building a custom Alfred workflow that uses the Cloudflare API to purge all caches for your web property? And then it did. It gave me a Python script, gave me places to put in your API key, your email address, the zone that you want to be purged. It put together a request, and then it had error handling. So that looked really good to me. So what I did is said, I wanted to not have this dependency, so can you convert this example workflow into a shell script, right? I don't want Python, I want anything that uses Bash to be able to run it. So then they do it. Same task as the Python script, but it's using shell. Now this is fantastic, because this would have taken me like an hour to do. I'm just not good at shell scripting. But because it's free, it's like, might as well turn all my things into shell scripts, because now they're super portable and they don't have the dependency. So I ran into a problem as soon as I started trying to use this. I looked up this API key, and I learned that Cloudflare API keys are deprecated. And that's a problem, because I'm like, how can this code be running deprecated?
You mentioned the closeness of ChatGPT. Here was the time doors closed.
That's right. Their training model goes up to like 2019 or something like that. So if there's like new APIs that have come out, it's not going to be in your training data. What I decided to do was use this search engine to figure out what this API key situation was. When I searched the Cloudflare docs, they said that the API keys are deprecated, and there's something called an API token that they use now. So I asked, can you describe the difference between I said Cloudflare API key versus API token. So, and they explained there are two types of authentication: global API keys and API tokens. And they're kind of explaining this, what you use them for, and giving me the source of where they got this information. What I learned was global API keys are not recommended for new customers, and current customers are encouraged to migrate to API tokens. So, okay, I should not use this global API key. I need to figure out how to use this token. Somewhere else, I also learned that that there's like a version, there's like a version 1 and a version 2. But really what I need was one that used this token and not the API key. So I jumped back over to Alfred and I said, okay, can you update this example to use this API token instead of the global key? So it updated the example, but it converted it back to Python for me, which is not what I wanted. So then I had to tell it, hey, can you convert this back to a shell script? And it said, sure, I'm happy to do that. Now it's using this API token. It's a shell script. The token's a little bit different. You have to pass it as a header, like here, instead of as a parameter or something, an authorization header. So then it was just, that was most of the work. At that point, I was able to copy this over and put it into like the script for my Alfred token, or for my Alfred extension. And it was pretty close. Now, I was kind of on my own to connect everything else together. Like, I needed a way to make sure my API keys weren't like hard-coded into this script, so then if I share it on GitHub, people aren't seeing my API keys. So there's like a way to do variables. I was on my own to do all of that because it's kind of outside of the scope of this little script. But I still think that ChatGPT did like a ton of work for me. In fact, when I tried to look up the API docs for this Cloudflare Purge Cache API endpoint, I was having trouble finding this specific endpoint in their docs. And it's great if you don't even have to look at the docs. If they just know the surface of the API and can set up the endpoints you need to use with the parameters that you need to pass, then it saves a whole lot of searching. So I was really excited about how that turned out. And yeah, it works well. I don't have to log into Cloudflare every time I need to clear caches for this site that I maintain. And okay, so that was just kind of an explanation walking through both ChatGPT and this thin search engine. So I want to talk about this other extension I did also. That was here. Yeah. So this was the browser extension for adding eyes, googly eyes. It's a little bigger. I have it up here. This is not in like the extension story yet, but you can add it, and it has a little panel here. Then I can just go ahead and drop these wherever I want to with great effect.
You shake your laptop.
No, but I wanted to add some down here that would like track your mouse. They would follow your cursor. Ran out of time on that one, but maybe that'll be coming soon.
You just needed the right prompt.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like, so I was making this and took some effort to get this working. I was using the cursor editor for this extension. I put my project in the editor, and I said I'm going to build it in here, the whole thing, and I was using that. One issue I had along the way was scrolling. So I would put these, I would drag them onto the people's faces, but then when I scrolled the page, they wouldn't, oh, look at that. Yeah. Then when I scrolled the page, they wouldn't move up and down the page. They just stayed in place and the page would slide underneath them. So that was something that I needed to have fixed. So let me just bring up the editor here. I'll kind of show you what this looks like. Here it is. This editor, I'm pretty sure it's just based on VS Code or maybe the open source framework underneath VS Code, because it uses like some extensions. There's like an extensions area, and it has like a lot of the VS Code extensions in here. Interesting that I've got GitHub Copilot in here. Maybe that was pre-installed. I'm not sure. So this is very VS Code-like if you use VS Code. But there's a couple cool features. They have this chat sidebar, which you can just ask questions to, like ChatGPT, and it would answer them. When I was running into this issue with the scrolling, it had to do with this code here, where I was positioning the eyeball onto the page. Set the position of the clone. Okay, so it's right here where I needed to move the left and top position of this target eye as I'm moving the mouse. And I had this question where it was using event client Y. So I was trying to understand what does this client Y mean, and how do I make it to refer to a scroll page and not a fixed page. So I asked, if event client Y is the distance from the top of the screen, what is the distance from the top of the web page, including scroll distance? And then what it did is it gave me an answer to that question. And then to my surprise, it found the code in my page that was using client Y. And it rewrote it to use Windows Scroll Y. Wow. And it said, if so, you could implement this in your code right here. And it was exactly the code that I wanted. I didn't mention anything about mouse moving. You can see I'm not talking about my code here. If I had asked this to ChatGPT, I would have had to translate it back to my use case. But because I'm using this integrated editor, it enhanced my method. So my original is right here, right? And it saw that I was talking about client Y, and it saw that client Y code was here, and it kind of assumed that he's working on this function here, and it rewrote the function for me using the top of the web page instead of the top of the screen. And that was, I think, the most impressive moment using this for me. So
you get a one button to insert,
right?
Is there a button to just say update?
There's like a little copy thing here, so you can click on this, and then it copies the clipboard. What I could have done was I could have highlighted this, and then there's like a chat about this code thing, and it'll, I think, probably automate that a little bit more for me. Or maybe not automate it, it would be more explicitly telling me, hey, I'm talking about this code right here. But so I could immediately see a benefit over just using GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT separately, right? So that's one of their key features, is like a refactor feature. So you can highlight some code, then you can chat. Actually, I think it's edit. Yeah, if you click edit, it's instructions for editing the selected code. And you can say, make this more efficient, refactor this, make this more succinct, whatever you want to say.
That's Python.
Maybe we should just try it and see.
You say something. Give these more descriptive variable names.
Oh, let's just try some of this. I don't know.
Or A, or B, or C.
I'm just going to select some of this. And where does it say edit? So it's going to rewrite it, and it's giving me diffs of things that have changed. So it looks like instead of handle click, it's doing handle mouse down, because I guess that's more accurate, because it's a mouse down event. They're changing target eye to cloned eye, because I've cloned it with this clone node. And then, yeah, the rest of this is the cloned eye. So, yeah, that seems pretty good to me. So I can go ahead and accept their changes, or I can reject them. And you can see why that's, again, more efficient and or pretty unique compared to what you have with other tools. Just accept those.
But then this is enhancing code that's working, so imagine like runtime bugs and all that kind of stuff is just easy work for this, any kind of real bug or something that's super easy work to fix.
Right. Or like adding more protection. Like I had the thought, like I could write this in JavaScript and then have them convert it to TypeScript and add types, and that would just be a lot more type safe, So I think there's a lot of opportunities. The thing that I think fell short for me here was I was really excited to see if it could scaffold out like a project file structure for me, because that's something that ChatGPT can't really do. They can give you like a little snippet, but what if you're working across multiple files or an entire code base?
Give me an MVC folder structure.
Yeah, so like I said to myself, this is a Chrome extension. There's probably a lot of Chrome extensions in the training data. So I said, hey, give me a project scaffold for a Chrome extension that does this and that. And what it did was underwhelming. I had it in an index.js file, and it wrote the manifest, which I needed, but it assigned it to a variable, and then it wrote the background function, and it assigned that to a variable, and then it wrote the content.js in it, and it was a lot smaller than this, but then it assigned it to a variable, and it put it all in one file. So then I had to be like, now I have to learn what is the actual project scaffold for Chrome extension, because it's been years since I worked on one. I don't remember, like, does it need to be manifest.json, or what do I need to name it? So I had to go outside of the editor to look all of that up, and then like create the files myself and put the things into the right files, and it didn't quite line up. It also gave me code like for the manifest that was manifest version 2. This was the version thing I was trying to remember earlier. It gave me manifest version 2, and then when I was like doing some web searches about it, apparently this manifest version is going to get deprecated this summer, and then version 3 is going to be the one that everything needs to use going forward. So I had to tell it, okay, can you convert this manifest into a version 3 manifest? And it did that, but like I didn't know it was behind a version, and I wish it would have just assumed I wanted the latest version. Maybe I should have asked for that. Maybe if I was better at prompt definition, then I would have said the latest version on whatever it is. However, they do have a thing here for this editor. You can do enter instructions that AI should always follow. So always use functional React. Don't use class components. I should say always use the latest supported version of Chrome, these extensions or these APIs or these dependencies.
Always be strict.
Yeah. Always have TypeScript things or have like certain indentation policies. You can save these instructions in here and kind of stack them up, and then as you're working, it's just applying that automatically to its kind of its prompt as it's giving you code. So again, I think this is something that you don't see if you're just hopping over to ChatGPT, and I think it's pretty cool. So it's called Cursor.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, like I have like a lot of stuff set up in my own VS Code editor, so I had to reset up some of the extensions that I was using. So there's some of that friction there, but I think that this is the kind of direction that programming is going to be going in general for the AI integration. Like chatbots are very, very open-ended, and anybody can use them for whatever they want to use them for. But I think we're going to see more specific, tailored AI use cases, like this kind of thing, where it's an editor has AI integrated all throughout it, and maybe this can't do file scaffolding yet, but I'll bet that's a feature that people have asked for, and probably it's on the horizon at some point.
I would imagine ChatGPT could at least give you like a ASCII displayed scaffold for an app or something,
Oh.
and then it could parse that and then build it or something.
Yeah.
I would think that might be a fun test with ChatGPT, like
I'll ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Well, don't most frameworks like React and Angular already have, you can create the project and the scaffolds for you?
Yeah, certainly. There's probably some like Chrome scaffolding NPM package out there or something that if I knew what it was, I could pull that down and have it do it.
Oh yeah, you can.
so you parse that.
It's you're not going to see it, but you can see it's writing a markdown file with the scaffolding.
Okay. Well,
Parse it out, and there you go.
right.
Or it's even writing like a package JSON and everything.
Okay. Yeah, I will say that, I mean, there's a design element to this extension. I wanted these to look like pretty authentic, googly eyes, and the AI was not good at design. Like I had these SVGs, and I would ask it to do things like take the SVG I exported out of my design tool and like minify it and make it more succinct and cut out all the things like SVGO might do. And it struggled to do that. Like it did it, but then when I previewed the SVG, it had cut out a couple of the elements and just dropped them. So it didn't have like the context to know that which parts were really useful and important. And, just kind of struggled with that. I would run into some issues when I was asking it to like indent things properly or lint things. I think there's still uses for like linting rules and like indentation policy. Like a lot of these things that we have in our code bases right now, I don't think are going to go away. But hopefully, like you could enter instructions saying like, hey, follow the linting policies in my ESLint file in the code base, or those kinds of things, so then the code is matching your team's coding style and code formatting. It'd be interesting to try to get that lined up properly, which I think it's kind of funny. You're almost treating the AI as a member of your team, and you also have to follow these linting rules, right? So it makes a lot of sense, and it seems like that's the kind of thing that an AI would be able to pick up on at some point. It might be tricky with the levels right now because a lot of these AIs, they're just like token predictors and trying to figure out what the next prediction is. And it seems like it would take a little bit more understanding to be able to read a config file and understand what all these things mean. Like it might have to go back to the docs for ESLint and parse that all and really use that context. But I think that kind of stuff is coming.
Especially with GPT-4, and then they have a plug-in to let it access a browser. You feed it, like, we work a lot in Svelte, so you just feed it the Svelte docs.
Yeah.
So using the Svelte docs, do this.
right? A lot of these projects have their own conventions. Go language, for example, there's like a lot of really strong conventions in the language, and you can say, follow the standard, you know, and well.
Yeah, I had one the other day for Postgres. I had to do a really obscure query that I had like no idea how to do. I just wrote a big old paragraph and said, here's all the stuff that I have, here's what I need to do. And what it came up with, I ran it, worked first try. It was great.
Yeah.
Saved me hours of work.
Yeah, for sure. We could go into GitHub Copilot as well. I didn't use it as much. Here, I'll just pull it up just so we can. I had an idea for like maybe if my next project or a future little project was, it'd be fun to put up a web page that will be able to tell you file sizes. Like you can drag and drop something from your desktop onto it and it'll tell you the size of the file. Or maybe you could give it a URL and it will look up that file and tell you the size of it. And there's probably other ways to do it, but people are lazy and a web page could do it. So I had this thought, well, I could make this web page. How would I do it using GitHub Copilot? One of the really neat features of Copilot is you can write a comment, and if you write the comment, it can kind of predict what should go next. So I wrote this comment this morning, just get file size, defines a function that takes a URL and turns the file size for the asset at the URL. And then you can see it starts to give you some auto-completion. So get file size, yep, this is looking like the function. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's using the fetch API, it's using async await, and then I didn't know that there was like a size property on the blob that gets brought back, but apparently there is. This could do what we're trying to do. So that seems pretty helpful. I kind of want to just test this out. So maybe I can ask it to give me like a HTML file. Yeah. Right?
So you're just hitting tab?
Yes, I'm just hitting tab in here. There we go. That one looks a little off. Yeah, closing head, there it is. And then it should give me a body tag. All right.
Fill out your body.
There we go. Whoa,
Wow.
check it out. There's a footer, all rights reserved, copyright 2017.
Which gives you the login page.
Look, it's CIS 228. Is this like a computer science class or something?
So that's an example. That's an example where that should not have pulled that.
Yeah, it seems a little bit much.
That's
got one computer screen.
Right. So I don't need that, but what I do need here is I need a script tag that can pull in my index file. There we go. And then I need a form, so I could just put in a comment for this form with a text box and submit button. Yeah, so it gives me that. Those are forms. And then, I could have it say like,
You want to do that Ajax, not a Postgres.
Hmm?
You want to do that Ajax, not a Postgres.
that's right. So I'll need to. I wonder if it'll pick that up. I might need to like delete. Yeah, so you can kind of see how this is coming together. There we go. Index.php. No, not what I want. So then you can actually jump through, use like Option tab, and like sort through the different options here. So yeah, I'm not gonna keep going through here and build out this whole thing, but you can see how it's kind of putting a lot of the pieces together.
So like with sorry, being allowed now. Do you have the option to get variations of the suggestion?
Yeah.
Like with IntelliSense, it'll say there are like 5 suggestions. You
Yeah.
can like scroll up and down, pick one of the suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just doing that here. So here's their option, and I can do option bracket, and you can see there's like except word, there's 3 of 3, or you could also page through like this, 1, 2, 3 options.
I didn't see that back here.
Yeah. So you can cycle through them. And then there's hotkeys for doing some of those things as well. I think there's hotkeys for like asking it for a prompt, which I don't know what that is off the top of my head. But yeah, you can put in a lot of this stuff. And then like, you know, and then I'll just run a server and see what this looks like. It's funny, they linked me to a style sheet that doesn't exist. So, folder doesn't exist either, yeah. But now I have this running on localhost, so I could come up in here and do this, and you can see we have a bit of a form here. So yeah, more work to go, but that's how you can kind of use those autocompletes to piece it together. This process, at least for me, it kind of brought me from a place of fear to being excited about it. So if you know anybody who's afraid or very hesitant, or if you feel that way to some degree, I think this is how you vanquish that. You just start using it. I mentioned side projects over work projects is probably a good place to start. And I think that you have to practice using it to become good at it. You have, kind of like the Google searches thing. Like you kind of have to know what's the right way to search for things in order to get what you want. And that applies to this too. And I do think, like I mentioned these 4 tools, but I think things are moving really quickly, and that maybe these tools that I'm using are not going to be the ones that people are using a year from now. So I wouldn't get like too hyper focused on like mastering, you know, cursor editor or whatever, because there's probably going to be something else coming soon. I think the important thing is to have like that attitude of experimentation and to kind of embrace what I'm using these things, and then be flexible with the tools that you're using over time.
It seems like every day I get like multiple LinkedIn posts from people that are like, here's the top 20 AI tools that will change your world.
Yeah.
It's like, how many of them are there?
Yeah. It's so clickable. So yeah, that's all I have. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, sir.